it is a fact that the sound quality of these man cave videos is an issue. This is because I want to keep everything really calm, simple, cheap, cheerful, everything like that. So I'm recording it on my iPhone. So the picture is quite good, as you can see, but the sound is quite dreadful, as you can hear. So I have asked in the previous man cave videos for suggestions about the sound, what I might do to improve it, but keeping it simple. I asked for just one thing. What's the one thing I could do that would improve the sound quality? And it needs to be easy, no hassle. I've just got my notes up there, so if I'm looking away from the screen and I'm not maintaining proper eye contact, I don't mean to be rude or anything like that. I want to look at my notes, otherwise I shall ramble, and you won't like that. So, comments on sound quality. I want to make videos as quickly and easily as possible, concentrating on the concert. Concentrating on the concert? Concentrating on the content. So I'm recording the audio to my iPhone. I don't think any... I've got a frog in my throat and I am going to mute that or dim it a little bit. I could see that coming back again, so I'm sorry about that, but this is the way things are just now. I'm recording the audio to my iPhone. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to record the audio with that to my computer, because then I've got to synchronize it, and synchronizing is a whole nother topic. It's easy in concept, but tricky sometimes in execution. So it is going directly into the iPhone. However, I managed to achieve that. What I'm going to do during the course of this video is use 4 different audio setups. So in each case, it's been recorded on the iPhone. So there's nothing funny going on in that respect. But there will be 4 different audio setups, and I'll indicate on the screen when the setups change. So we're going to have this setup, which is as I was doing previously. Then we'll have setups. Then we'll have setup. Wondering whether to start from A or start from B. No, we'll call this setup A. And then we'll have B, C, and D. And what I'd like you to do is, firstly, try and imagine what it is that I've done to achieve this kind of sound quality, and tell me which you prefer. So that will give me some idea of where to go with this in future. I think we can get into some comments now, in no particular order. And these are the comments I've received so far about sound quality. And I've tried to include them all. There are just so many comments, it's difficult to sort them out. And I think I've got them all here. I think I've lost 1 or 2 people's usernames, which is unfortunate, but leave another comment and then I can give you due honour then. So let's get right into it, right at the top. These are in no particular order, as I said. So we've got Dolphin Wave, capital D, capital W. EQ, but not for room acoustics treatment, but rather for microphone frequency response correction. You know, this is an iPhone, so we're not expecting the microphone to be perfect. But I don't think this is the major problem. I really do think that it's the room resonance that's the major problem. Once that is ameliorated in using whatever method, then I might possibly look at the frequency response of the microphone. But I'm thinking that's not going to be an issue. So I'm just going to wait and see whether that comes up as an issue in the future. So I'll just hold that, put a pin in that for the moment and move on. So we've got Anna Hatter Melodian. All one word. The sound's fine. I can hear the room sound, and you might be able to tune out a resonance with a sharp EQ dip at the frequency where it's worst, if you can find one in brackets. But you are right about treating a room problem with EQ, so why not treat it at source? Put some sound absorption in a place that would help. I'd guess your phone mic is omnidirectional, so behind the phone might be a good place. But to the right and left, or even above, off camera, of course, would help too. Yes, he's not wrong. This room does have a certain resonant frequency, and it's around 100 hertz, 120 hertz. I can't remember. I did look at it using a spectrograph, and I did experiment with just putting a little bit of a dip in there, and at the next harmonic as well, because that is sometimes an issue as well. It did sound better. So again, you can't cure an acoustic treatment problem with EQ, but you can make it sound better. So that might be a possibility. And putting in some sound absorption. Well, he's saying put it in a certain place. He says behind the phone. The problem with that is this is where my computer screen is. And I need that for my notes and for the for the comments that I'm reading. So that is completely impractical. I mean, he doesn't know that, so but I can't do that. So places where sound might be primarily reflecting from. But I do think in this case, it's pretty much a whole room problem. What I have done in the past, I think it's always good to experiment. Did I tell you this is going to be a long video? I didn't say that, did I? Someone said in one of the other comments that he could listen to an hour of me rabbiting on about audio things. So I've taken that as a kind of challenge. One of the things about acoustic treatment, whether it's for production or whether it's for listening room, is you can do acoustic treatment for absolutely no cost whatsoever, even if it's just on a trial basis. So what my idea is that you do stuff to find out what the best treatment is, and then you do it properly. So one of the things I have tried in this room is to bring a couple of mattresses in. So I've got a couple of single mattresses to spare, and I just brought them into the room just to see what difference it made. And what I can tell you is there's a hell of a lot of absorption in a mattress. It made a huge difference. So what that is telling me is that this room would benefit from absorption. I might come to that because there's more to room acoustic treatment than absorption. And I might come to that in this video or deal with it in a different video. Anyway, the mattresses were just an experiment and they've gone back to where they need to be now, on the beds. So let's move on to Klaus Flügelschwanz 6759. Pronunciation, hey. Is post-processing mandatory for improving audio? That's the first of his questions. Absolutely no. Did I say this already? Get it right at source. I've said that in so many videos that I can't remember whether I've said it in this video or not. What you want to do is to get the signal coming out of the microphone to be as near perfect as it possibly can be, within budget and within time constraints, of course. And that should be the primary objective of any recording engineer. Don't plan on fixing things later, plan on getting it right at source. The exception is that quite often what you're trying to do is capture lightning in a bottle, is the expression. So something might be happening now and your microphone setup isn't quite fine-tuned as it should be, it's connected and working. You've got to capture that lightning in a bottle and capture it now, because if you wait until everything's nice and perfect and fine-tuned, that lightning might have just gone away. So post-processing is not mandatory. But even if you've got the most perfect signal you can coming out of the microphone, there is usually scope to improve it. So EQ, I nearly said it never does any harm, but EQ doesn't do any permanent harm unless you really go to extremes with it. So yes, you can usually improve things with EQ. And then there's dynamic range issues to consider as well quite often, but that would be a different topic for a different day. His other question is, wouldn't a tiny wireless microphone solve this? Or is that still too much of a hassle? Well, I will say this, in my opinion, there's no point in using a wireless microphone if you can use a wired one. You are just setting yourself up for more hassle. So it would be a wired one probably if I did that. It doesn't necessarily have to be tiny, but tiny could be good. I could just be clipping it to my t-shirt here. The issue I've got with that is that it's an iPhone 11, so it doesn't have an audio input. It's only got a lightning connector. And there are such things as microphones that have lightning connectors on the end of their cable. That could be a possibility. The other possibility is actually a wireless microphone, because they are as cheap as wired microphones in some cases. So I am looking for cheap and cheerful, so getting something from Amazon or AliExpress or something like that. So it could turn out that despite my reluctance to use a wireless microphone, I might end up using one. Who knows? We'll see. Moving on. Joel, let me just look at my notes. I've got another note just down here. No, I'm okay. Joel Carson 4602. Video quality was fine. I didn't find the audio objectionable at all. Didn't notice the room effects until you mentioned it, but was still okay. I mean, I watched it on my phone. How immersive can that be? Okay. You know, that doesn't really add anything to the debate, but it's good. It's like a controlling experiment. If everybody says you can do this, you can do that, it's kind of saying, I need to do something. Whereas a comment like that is saying, well, maybe I don't need to do anything. That could be a possibility. Okay, next one. The X-File. A very simple question here. Are you in the closet? There's two possible answers to that, and I'm just going to say quickly no and no. Moving on. Kiwi335D. I sense this person comes from the land of the Chinese gooseberry. David, thanks for the great video. I think the audio of your room sounds pretty decent for the purpose you're using it to make this video. Well, exactly so. So like I said previously, that's like the control in the experiment. He finds it okay. Maybe it is okay. ADSKN. I don't think there's any way of pronouncing that. The really high quality audio of your regular videos is something I really appreciate, and I think a visible microphone in future informal videos would be an acceptable compromise. Okay, I'm just wondering whether there's another comment that addresses this more directly, but I will just deal with this now. So there we go. There's my there's my visible microphone. So I'll just take the windshield off so you can look at it in more detail. Isn't that lovely? I normally have it about there. And the reason you can't see it in most of my normal videos is that I mask it off. So in my video editing software, I put a green patch over it so it will just key with the rest of the video. And you could say, why do I mask it off? Why shouldn't oh sorry, I was looking at myself in the screen there. I must stop doing that. I need to look at the camera. Why do I need to do that? If this is a channel about audio, why does it matter if the microphone shows? Well, it doesn't really matter if the microphone shows, but sometimes when I put a graphic on the screen, I like to move myself across like that and then move myself back. And I can tell you it looks really weird if the microphone moves as well. And I can only move one way because the microphone, it actually would have to be that way, because the microphone would have to move out of shot. Otherwise, you just get just trying to do some hand signals here, the edge of the frame just coming across, Oh, I'm just not going to do that anyway. Anyway, I went down a rabbit hole there. Yes, I went down a rabbit hole there. Isn't that peculiar? Isn't that really peculiar? Look, I'm just getting my drink from the floor. Otherwise, I might. I nearly said I might suffocate there. What's going on? I might do something in the video edit here because it's giving the game. Knocking everything over. It's giving the game away here. I'm choking on my own Highland Spring water. Look, the commenter said it was okay for me to rabbit a bit, so you should never have encouraged me. All right, so we are into setup. The first one was setup A. That's my previous do nothing approach. This is setup B. So we've got Nitro McLean. The one thing you could do to make the sound better is to make it mono. I think you should not sum up left and right, but use the left channel only. It sounds better to me than the right channel. So he's packed a lot into a couple of short sentences there. So I'm using my iPhone and I've examined it carefully, and it's got a microphone at one end and it's got a microphone at the other end as well. But they're not symmetrical. One is on the front of the iPhone and the other one is on the bottom of the iPhone. Look, you can't see my finger in there. down there. So they're not symmetrical. So it's not picking up a symmetrical stereo sound, which is bad. That is bad. Apple, that is bad. But that's the way things are. So this is something which does crop up in other circumstances as well. That you're recording a single sound source, which in this case is my voice. So how wide of a stereo image do you want me to have? I'm not Louis Armstrong. Where was I? Yes, so the question is, should it be stereo at all? And the answer quite often for a single sound source, the answer is it should just be mono. And as he said, there's two ways of doing this. One way is to collapse left and right into mono, so you're adding them together. And the other way is just to use one of the channels. Well, I have experimented with this. Collapsing them left and right doesn't really work because the microphones, firstly, they're spaced apart, and secondly, they're not symmetrical. So that is a bit of a non-starter. What does work, though, is just using one of the microphones. So there is the possibility that I just use the left microphone, which seems to be the better of the two. So he's exactly right there. Oh, yes, I've completed that one, I think. Okay, so we've got Keith Neal, 5369. Hanging a heavy draped curtain or carpet behind you may help damp resonance in your man cave. Rooms have such an influence on sound quality. I'm lucky that in my listening room I have plenty of natural damping. Okay, I was just wondering what he was talking about in the rest of his comment, but he was suggesting a title for this series, and he suggests it should be You Talking to Me? Good one. All right, hanging a carpet behind me. Funnily enough, I have got a carpet in front of me hanging on the wall. A rug. I've had a rug on my wall since 1994. And it's not the same rug, it's a different one now. And, you know, it's not the best acoustic treatment in the world, but sometimes the point is not about having the best, it's about having something now, and getting the job done and getting the improvement now. It's not going to be able to go behind me unless it goes behind my green screen, which I suppose it could. Many YouTubers with a green screen will not admit to this, but they use it because you don't have to tidy anything. The green screen will be staying, yes. Carpet behind? It could be possible. Right, moving on. Ron Shower 839. Your voice sounds just fine to me, though yes, there seems to be a bit of a resonance peak mid-range. I'd have said it's really quite lower down. Nothing worth being concerned about, though. It isn't a concert. Well, he's right. As far as reverb effects from the room, I didn't really notice any listening with headphones. Actually, in the absence of any other information, I'd have guessed that you were in a relatively small room or enclosure. I am. I'm in what would have been the third bedroom of my house, so it is inevitably quite small. And no, I'm not prepared to sacrifice any of the other rooms of my house. You know, I've got a life. You know, I've got a life outside of here. Not much of a life sometimes, but no. Moving on. I need my notes again. I didn't do something funny now, aren't I? I should have it all in one place. No, I think we're okay. We'll do something funny again. Okay. This is Byron Franek 2706. The rabbit hole. I've just mentioned the rabbit hole. Okay, yeah. I get that. That's got a double meaning as well, because it's a rabbit hole that you go into and it just takes you further and further and deeper into places that you probably didn't want to explore. And rabbits as in rabbiting on. I have no issues with the audio or video quality used in this production. Thank you. Okay, Ed Dents. The mic on the phone sounds pretty darn good, and your space doesn't have any reverb that my ears can hear. Perhaps the lavalier mic you could get from Amazon to try step up the sound, and if it doesn't improve things much, return it. A mic just for your phone could improve the sound in other recording venues that are not as forgiving sound-wise as your home theatre. Your viewers may enjoy more occasional content from you on the road, and a separate mic for your phone would allow for improved audio for those videos, perhaps. I'm no expert by any means. I think of these things for my own future channel, perhaps. LOL. Well, he is right about a lavalier microphone, and I've said this already. It just needs to be one that's got a lightning connector. Let's move on. Gabriel Goodwin 9953. Hello, sir. The sound quality from your phone isn't horrible. I do think that some minimal EQ in the mid-range, 450 to 600 hertz maybe, might help some. It does sound a bit boxy, but those are important frequencies for voice. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's more the voice than the room, but I don't disagree. I, of course, am unaware of what plugins you possess, but if you have iZotope RX, they have a de-reverb function. I've personally never had the need to use it, even though I do have it, but that might be worth a try. RX is fairly quick and easy to use. I can't speak on what sort of oddball artifacts that function might create, but I've been satisfied by its other functions. Have a good afternoon. Well, yes, I do have iZotope RX, and I can say that it is a brilliant software. Once again, I'll say, make a good recording to start off with so that you don't need RX. But sometimes you do need it. When I'm recording with my microphone like this, it's my own fault, but I can't do anything about it. I get a lot of mouth clicks, and RX has a mouth declick module, and it works fantastically well. It's got a denoise function that I don't usually need, but if I do need it, it works fantastically well. And the other functions that it's got, amazing. De-reverb, though, is the kind of thing that it either works or it doesn't. So there could be situations where you can get useful function out of it. But I have tried it with this audio, this particular audio, and there's no setting I can find that either doesn't work or produces more artifacts than is possible than I can stand, and certainly that I want my viewers to stand. So in this case, it's a good shout, but no, RX is not going to help. Okay, Martin Baron 2921 is the audio in stereo. In the camera settings, you can switch it to mono. That might help. Well, I've dealt with this already. I just add to that I wouldn't do that in the camera settings. I would do that in post-production. That would be a more versatile way of working. Write a name here, 5261, says simply, sound is fine. Good. Excellent. Most irreverent. Can you wrap the phone's microphones in some kind of foam? This is done. Yes, this is done, and I'm not going to rule that out to have some sort of absorption behind, wrapping around the phone, put it that way, because someone did mention having absorption behind the phone, but making that more compact and attaching it to the phone, that could work, and maybe there's something available already that could just clip on. So I'm not going to rule that out. Just see where we are with this. Okay, I'm getting a bit lost how far I am. I'm going to move on to I'm going to move on to setting C. So whatever it was I was doing before, I'm not doing it now, but I'm using setting C. So this could be another type of sound texture that you could comment on. Okay, most irreverent. Actually, I didn't read out the second part of his comment, which is, I really think your solution is going to be $5,000 interconnects. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, the plain fact is I'm not using any interconnects, so that really answers. That's where I'm going wrong. Jim 010109. I have a man cave as well, and if I may ask you, did you install a lot of room treatments? When I first read that comment, and I think I replied to it, I misunderstood it. I thought he was saying, do I go around from studio to studio installing acoustic treatment? Well, no, that's a million miles from what I do. And it is a specialism in its own right, and it should be done by not just by professionals, but by professionals who work with audio, not just making rooms sound nice like concert halls. But, what he means, I think, is in this room that I'm in now, have I installed a lot of room treatment? Well, there is the saying, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And I do believe there's a lot of truth in that statement. If you're going to circumnavigate Antarctica or something like that, I've just got a notification that I just need to get rid of. Go away, go away. If you're going to cross Antarctica or circumnavigate Antarctica or the Sahara Desert or something like that, well, definitely, if you don't prepare for it, you're not just going to fail, you're going to die. So no laughing matter, really. But there are lots of places in life where I've seen it myself in other people, and I've seen it in myself, that you prepare and you prepare and you prepare, and you never get on with anything. So there comes a point where you need to get on with something, and I'd say certainly with YouTube. YouTube is not a medium for perfection. It's a medium for getting on with stuff. So with acoustic treatment, I've done some work in this room because it definitely needed it, but not as much as I could do. So what have I done? I've already mentioned the carpet that's behind my monitor, and it's as wide as my arm span, a little bit more. It's not quite a square, but it's approaching that. So it's a reasonable size and a thickness. It's not the thickest rug I've ever had. My previous rug was better, but that's now my living room. That's now my living room floor. Need to remember to look at the camera. And also that wasn't nearly enough. So I've got so-called acoustic tiles, they sometimes call. They're foam absorbers. And they look like mini anechoic chambers because it's got that pyramid design, which according to the acoustic experts that I have looked this up, is nonsense. It should just be solid foam filling the entire space, rather than having the pyramid shape. And that just makes gaps in there where there's no foam. But it looks, I don't know, people think it looks right, so that's what you can buy. And it was cheap. It wasn't an expensive thing to do. I think something around about 100 quid. That a quid is a great British pound, maybe a bit more than that. And I've covered most of the walls. I've covered part of the ceilings, which I think is when my budget ran out, and the door as well. I've got some of these panels on the door. So plainly they're not enough, and absorption is never enough to treat a room properly, but it goes a long way. So if you'd heard this room without any of the treatment and compared it now, without the treatment, you'd be saying that video is unlistenable. I can't possibly watch any of that guy's videos anymore. So that is the answer to that. So I think if I was going to go forward with this, do I want to improve this and bring it up to, it's never going to be perfect. Small rooms are always difficult. I'd be breaking out my copy of the BBC Handbook of Acoustics or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. I might look that up for another video, but there's a whole BBC manual and it shows how, I mean, it's getting on in age now, but the principles of acoustics don't change over the years. And I would be do-it-yourselfing to those kinds of designs. Let's move on. Howard, I can't pronounce this. If I try, I shall get it hopelessly wrong, so I'll just spell it out. It's Howard, Skeivys, 4184. Let me start by commenting that there was nothing wrong with the audio reproduction in this video, or to be more accurate, it was more than good enough for the purposes for which it was intended. well, yes, I agree. But in contrast, we've got FUTU. I'm not going to read that out loud. It sounds a bit dodgy to me. 1983. Quite disappointed. I clicked on this video thinking, at least this guy has good sound quality. Well, what can I say? He is going to be disappointed. It's bad sound quality. Well, it's not bad, but it's not good. But that's half the point of this series of videos. But anyway, he hasn't watched any of the other of my videos, so it's not going to make sense to him. I think I should be moving on to my fourth setup. Now, I'm losing count now. I hope I've got this right. If I've got it wrong, I'm just going to have to put a caption on the screen to try and explain it. Right, I'll just do one more with this setup and then I'll move on to the next. So we've got Spectre Layer. Do you have, oh gosh, this is complicated. Do you have a multi-band noise gate in software? I think the simplest processing in your monologues, that's giving it a grand title, might be to set the various frequency sensitivity levels of a noise gate to favour your voice and little else. Well, yeah, this is a thing, splitting up the audio into several bands, and then I wouldn't probably gate it as such, but expand it could be a possible, wouldn't be a solution. I think Waves has a plugin that does that, but the thing is, though, that single-ended noise reduction is so good these days that really you don't need to do all that gating business. So Waves has one which is called the N something one. Memory is bad. But I've got Isotope RX to do that if I need to do it. It's not a noise problem anyway. It's a reverberation problem. So the second would be EQ, rapidly roll off everything below 100 Hertz, then roll off everything above 8 to 12 kilohertz. Okay, I'm just going to pause there. He hasn't finished his sentence. Yeah, there's nothing useful below 100 Hertz in speech. So yeah, that's fine. No problem with that. And roll off everything above 8, right. And roll off everything above 8 to 12 kilohertz. So you could sample at 22.05 kilohertz losslessly in mono to preserve that valuable Apple memory that they don't allow you to add to. After all, this is simply speech. In the past, This might have been good advice, but we're in 2023 now, and I don't think this is particularly relevant. So rolling off everything above 8 to 12 kilohertz, well, most people are not going to notice that anyway. So, I mean, you can do that. And sampling at 22.05K, no, there's just no need to do that. I've got plenty of bandwidth and plenty of storage. So no. I'm sampling at 48K, I think it is. Anyway, I might come back to that in another video. The last filter might be some compression for peak limiting. You could probably write a macro to do the entire process in a single click. Okay, applying some compression for peak limiting. I'm going to tell you one of my deepest, darkest secrets here. I limit my audio. You're going to switch off now. You're still there? Okay, limiting. YouTube has got this thing where they want the audio to reach a certain level, which is minus 14 LUFS. That's loudness units compared to full scale. Now, with speech, you can't do that unless you use compression or limiting. So what I do is I use isotope RX, which has got a function for this, so that it'll bring the level up to the required subjective loudness. And at the same time, it'll bring down the peak, so it's never louder than minus 1 dBTP. That's decibels relative to true peak. I don't go as high as minus 14. I compromise at minus 16. I know it's not much of a compromise, but I had to settle on something. So you will find if you go to the top left corner of your screen, if you're on a computer, right click, you'll see stats for nerds, and you'll be able to see my frame rate, my sampling rate, and the levels that I am using. Okay, let's move on. Gary Duggan Music. Can you get rid of the liveness by recording in an anaerobic chamber? To which my reply was, yes, in a vacuum, no one can hear you scream. It's a typo. It means anechoic chamber. No, if you ever get the chance to go into an anechoic chamber, you should. It's the weirdest experience you'll ever have. It feels like, even if there's no sound, it's like the sound in your ears and the anechoic chamber is sucking it out like that. It's the weirdest experience. So where did I go? I think it was Celestion that make guitar loudspeakers. I'm fairly sure it was them. They have an anechoic chamber, and I was privileged to go in there and sample the weirdness. Let's move on. Oh, I didn't get the username for this, so I'm sorry. At first I wondered why it sounded a bit boxy, but then you told us you were using your iPhone, not the short shotgun you often use. Well, that's it, exactly. I think I've covered that one, so I'll move on. Alex Richardson 9125. I thoroughly enjoy your mature and so well-rounded knowledge and attitude. Well done. Could you please do something on room resonance reverberation sometime? I bought a pair of expensive... Oh, dear. Oh, dear. I screenshotted that, and I seem to have cut off the bottom of it. From memory, I think what he said was he bought some active absorbers. So normally acoustic treatment is done using passive absorbers. So you've got your porous absorbers, which is just the foam. You've got some membrane absorbers and sometimes Helmholtz resonators. But active absorbers, they're like active suspension on a car. So instead of having a spring and a damper, it's actually powered. So I know nothing about cars, but I do understand that concept. I really must look into that at some point. So yes, I'm make a mental note. Right, we're getting towards the end of it now. Thank the Lord, you'll probably say. Jacob Bole. Jacob Bole? Jacob Bole. Jacob Bole. Who knows? Not only ruminous, but it also sounds as if it isn't mono-compatible. There are phase problems. So I'm just going to read out my reply because I tried to write something which was concise and useful. There is only true monocompatibility using a single mic, a coincident crossed pair, or mid-side. The mics in my iPhone are spaced and asymmetrical, so as you say, monocompatibility is not the best. Also, as you usefully say, there may be phase problems. This audio played in mono sounds quite a lot worse than stereo, so I suspect this is so. In fact, it sounds better using only the mic that's at the top of the phone, which in this case is the left channel. This would be the kind of simple improvement that would suit this style of video. I don't think I can add to that. Okay, last couple of comments. Yeah, I can hear the room a lot. EQ won't get out. Oh, sorry, this was his whoas. Yeah, he says, I can hear the room a lot. EQ won't get out the resonance. Put a gobo out somewhere, either behind you or behind the camera, to block your voice from direct access to a wall. Try different placements. Alternatively, there's no need for optimal sound in a video that is just dialogue. He's not wrong. I think we've covered this already. And he also adds to that in reply to his own comment. Do you have a desire to use Isotope's offerings? They have a dialogue isolate function somewhere. It might be dear, as you Brits say. I don't normally say that myself. It sounds like an old person's word. Expensive means expensive. Okay, and last one. Marksman 00, and he spells Marks, M-A-R-X. You could put some wacky, distracting music in the background, like most other creators. In fact, I think it's part of the guidelines. And I replied to that, I detect a hidden sarcasm emoji there. I think background music can sometimes work, but not for anything technical or educational, in my humble opinion. So, I'd say a couple of things about this. Firstly, the world needs a better sarcasm emoji. An upside-down smiley face is not good enough. And I tell you something, I would use it if I had it. Background music, what I've noticed about that is that sometimes I'm watching a video on some fairly casual subject. So it's not technical. There's no complicated details. It's not about maths. I do watch maths videos, funnily enough. I could make a whole video about maths, but I'm not going to. If it's a relaxing video, then you're just meant to sit back and just let it just flow over you, then background music can work. And I have experimented with it myself for my own amusement. But for anything technical, such as this, no, it doesn't work whatsoever. It's just a distraction, so that's not going to happen anyway. I think I have done it. I should be asking you a question at some stage. Oh, I'm asking you a question, yeah. My treatments that I did to my voice, my 4 treatments, treatments A, treatment B, treatment C, and treatment D. Firstly, which do you prefer? Maybe you prefer A, which is the original, I'll tell you that. And once you've decided which you prefer, how did I do it? See you soon.